Welcome to Tea Time, the podcast. I am Cassie Marina, fondly known as the Branding Queen, and I am a digital branding expert helping businesses get online and thrive doing so. I am passionate about sharing my knowledge through content creation like this podcast, online classes, and workshops, as well as through the services of my branding agency to help you develop your online systems. Think of this podcast as the place to get the latest advice, strategies, tips, news, and inspiration on building your brand online using the tools available to us, but most importantly, thought-provoking content to improve your mindset, to maximize on these tools and put context to day-to-day developments in the online world of business with a little bit of tea dishing facts and sass, because I really want you to thrive online. So thank you so much for tuning in. Let's begin. So in my last podcast episode, which is called Dealing with Time Wasters, I touched on time wasters. And this brings me to this episode, which is me pivoting and why I am pivoting. Now, I'm not pivoting in this grand sense, but I'm pivoting in the sense that I am restructuring a couple of things, cleaning up my funnel so that I only connect really and truly with my ideal clients. All right. So I have identified where as my business bestie likes to call them, duds, the people who don't convert, or the clients who are either they don't convert or they aren't ideal clients. Like, you work with them, but it's not a pleasant experience. You know what I mean? We all have those, let's just say, miserable people, or the people who don't actually get the most out of your services or the best out of your work because they just weren't ready for what you had to offer, and they weren't coachable to really follow the strategies and systems that you want to execute for them. All right, if you are a service-based business owner, you have probably dealt with these type of people before. They don't want to follow your strategies. They come to you for help, and they know more about what you specialize in than they do. And when you need specific information or you need the input on stuff, well, you're not getting the kind of collaboration that you're looking for, and the working relationship just isn't the way that it's supposed to flow. Okay? So sometimes we have to identify, well, okay, who are my dream clients? Who are my ideal clients? And where did they come from? What did they do? How did they purchase? How did they buy? And then you think about the people who weren't. Most times, people who weren't good clients, who weren't ideal clients, or wasn't very favorable, or they weren't able to get what they needed out of your service. You also have to remember, I'm pretty sure there were red flags and that you ignored. Most times there are red flags that you ignored, and even myself, you ignore the red flags. Sometimes just for the sake of making the money, or just for the sake of converting another client this month, right? We've all been there. We've all done it. It's okay. And you also have to evaluate the things that they weren't willing to do, or the things that were difficult for them to do. So was it hard for them to pay you with a credit card because they don't have one? Was it hard for them to follow your process, which is, hey, I accept through PayPal? Was it hard for them to submit the information that you needed? Was it hard for them to make the payment within a certain time period? You had to constantly remind them. Was it hard? So that's time frame. Was it hard for them to, gladly pay? Like, there was a little bit of, let's say, friction in terms of the pricing. They probably raised well, nothing is wrong with raising objections, but you know what I mean. They wanted to beat down your price, so to speak. Whether you did or you didn't, they tried. Was it difficult for them? When you give them alternatives, it was another reason to pay that way, or they couldn't go to the bank that time. Like, what were all of the points of friction versus, your ideal client where things ran smoothly, right? I have identified who works and who doesn't work. And for a very long time, because I have a sweet spot for a specific market or a specific type of client or a specific demographic, I would modify my system to accommodate, right? And it's just not my ideal people, right? When you find that you are trying to modify your systems to accommodate, this is probably not your ideal client. Then another thing to take into consideration, like, yes, we have to have a human element to our business and we must be flexible. But these were the things where I would compromise or modify my process for the sake of being flexible. Actually, no, I wouldn't say it's for the sake of being flexible, because there's a slight difference between being flexible and then justifying it under the guise of being flexible. So, are you being flexible to the point of not having boundaries, right? So, today I'm really talking about how I'm pivoting. I'm pivoting by making certain services, which really and truly are premium level, making them inaccessible. How is that making it inaccessible? And yes, I'm being fully transparent here. And you can read in between the lines and figure out what I'm saying. And you can also see how this applies to you in your business. Now, you're open to everybody. We're open for business. The doors are open, but only few people are going to make it through your funnel. Many people, so for example, so the points of contention that are hard, for people to convert, or they couldn't do this or they couldn't do that, these are the things that you need to use as ways for people to filter themselves out of converting. Yes, that might mean turning down clients, but you're not actively telling them no. They are the ones who are saying no, because they are saying, I can't do this because, now is not the good time, or I don't have a credit card, or I can't get to the bank right now. You actually capitalize on those things and be like, you know what? I have a time frame. If you don't pay by this date, then, now you come back and you tell them, well, the spots are booked up. Maybe we can revisit this in a couple months' time. Usually people don't come back in a month's time, but it's a nice way of identifying the red flags. Well, not even identifying, but putting systems in place so that when these red flags arise, they funnel themselves out. So that is one way I am pivoting, by really changing up a couple of things on my website, changing up a couple of things with my process. And it's either you go through the funnel / process and you make it to the end and you convert, or you don't. But at the end of the day, you want to work with people who you are your ideal client, and your ideal client isn't just people that you want to work with, but it's also people who are going to get the most out of your services. And usually these seemingly small things show if these people are ready to implement the things that you have to offer them. Okay? So I touched on pivoting, how I'm pivoting and how you can pivot too, by changing up your systems, finding the red flags, identifying the things that that were red flags, or where you would have compromised or modified and accommodated don't accommodate and actually find these points of friction and place them there. It's like, okay, usually my non-ideal client doesn't like this, so let me put this there so that if this person reaches this bump, quote unquote, bump in the road of my sales process, that they're not going to convert and be a client. And that's win-win. You don't work with them, you don't have to tell them no, they eliminate their own selves by this red flag or this bump in the road. The other thing is really zone in on your ideal client. I'm going to admit again, I have compromised, and nobody really benefits when you compromise. You only hurt your business. You really have to zone in on who your ideal client is and go after it unapologetically. You're going to have a much sustainable business, right? It's going to be healthier because it's sustainable, and you're going to be happier, and your clients are going to get the best out of you, and they're going to get the best service because you are really operating from your zone of genius. You're really operating from a space and a place of from a place of being at your best, because you're not bogged down, being frustrated with certain things not working right, or this isn't going right because this person doesn't want to follow your process, or you just had a not so good client interaction call before, and now you're totally drained, but you have this next client call, but you're just showing up because you're supposed to show up and the call is scheduled. You're not being your best, so you can't give your best. So in order to avoid that, really, really, really be unapologetic about serving your ideal client. And lastly, I touched on this in my previous episode, which is time wasters, is automate and funnel all of this. So when you've decided to pivot, like I've put in place, the message on Facebook. Either they're going to go to the website, and then my website is now prepared and ready to tackle my ideal clients as well as the time waster clients. And it's there working 24 hours, automating the entire system while I sleep. The only part that isn't really automated is hopping on that free consult call or answering emails. And if you are at that point in your business, then you can always have a VA answer your emails for you. There are things to implement, but before hiring human beings, there are so many tools where you can automate so many different things. And your website is just that hub. It's the hub for your business. It's where it all goes down. All the information is there. All your content should be there. Most of your content creation, your videos, it should be there and strategically placed to answer certain questions, certain objections. So you have less people trying to DM you, less people trying to email you. And even if they email you, you can always follow them, the link to that page. And you can also follow them, send them the link specifically to a video somewhere on your website where they can take a look. And then, of course, you always tell people, hey, if you have any further questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to assist. But when you have all these systems in place, you work a lot less harder, and you reserve your time, your energy for the people who are already onboarded as clients. You really have the mental space, the mental clarity to do your best work and to serve people who are already onboarded. And while you're serving these clients, you have these systems constantly prospecting and dealing with new prospects. And you don't always have to be like, that feast and famine cycle, that when, okay, I'm done working with this, let's say I had, client work has dried up, quote unquote. Client work shouldn't dry up because you have a well-oiled machine, And like I said, I'm going to have someone to speak on funnels and how you can really optimize your website and create a funnel so that you can carry people through an experience. Because, of course, again, back to the basics of branding, branding is the emotion, the feeling, the experience, all of these different things and elements tied into one so that you have the best service and experience that people can experience. All right, so if you have any questions, I would love to hear from you guys. Feel free to DM me your questions on this episode. You can also click reply if this episode ended up in your email inbox. I'd love to hear from you. If anything here isn't clear, I'd love to hear from you. And if you just enjoyed this episode, I'd still love to hear from you. And once again, as usual, if you got any value, you love this episode, you enjoyed it, share it with a friend, share it on social media, tag me. And yeah, thanks for listening. Enjoy. I'll talk to you guys on the next one.